All right. Well, we're super excited for everyone to be here today, guys. This is going to be our Fitness for Everyone webinar. Vincent is going to lead us through this, and then at the end, we'll open up for some question and answers if anyone has any questions about the webinar or about the new program, the new app. I know some people might have questions about that as well. So be sure to stay till the end to get the certificate of attendance that you can just either take a screenshot of on your phone or screen grab on your computer, and that's what you will use to submit for proof of attendance in the app. So I'm also monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions in the meantime, you can send those in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. And Vincent, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much. Let's see. So the pleasure to have you all here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your lunch to join us. This series is going to be called Fitness for Everyone, and basically just the overall goal is to help support everyone in making sustainable lifestyle changes that kind of can enhance your long-term fitness and health. Sustainable being the key word there. So just a little bit about me. This is a photo of me and my wife and my daughter who just turned 3. I'm a dietetics graduate student in the Department of Nutrition and Family Sciences. I really enjoy nutrition, obviously, to be in this field, but especially cooking and kind of tying that together with fitness in general. I'd call this webinar series a little bit of a research is me search kind of deal where I was interested in how I could incorporate fitness more practically into my busy schedule. And I know everybody here has probably got a lot going on. So thank you for joining us. So there's going to be 4 of these. This is the first one, and it's just going to be increasing our familiarity with the actual recommendations for Americans on physical activity. The next one, I'm going to highlight some available resources that y'all have. Then after that, we'll provide some practical strategies to kind of make it seem a little bit more feasible to incorporate physical activity. And then the last session is just going to be about building it into your routines and kind of sustaining that lifestyle. So everyone here actually did the survey, and I really appreciate that. This is just a little bit of information about y'all. So most of us were unfamiliar with the physical activity guidelines, and I'm going to give us just a brief rundown on that. There's actually a lot of information we could go over. A lot of us have pre-existing health conditions, myself included, actually. 70% of us are pretty confident that physical activity can benefit a chronic condition. 90% of us can fit 30 minutes activity into a day. I'm hoping to persuade everybody that you can manage to kind of figure out a way to get 30 minutes of activity into your day. And over half of us are already making efforts to include little bouts of activity here and there into your routines. So what are we running into? It seems like the majority of us have time constraints, which is obvious. I mentioned earlier, motivation is a big one, and then health-related limitations, which throughout the series, I'm hoping to specifically address physical activity and chronic conditions and how to make that easier for anyone who wants to improve their physical activity. As far as motivation goes, I'd just like to say that y'all are all here. You're already showing a high level of motivation. I think it's more of a matter of figuring out your systems, routines, and what's going to work for you. So I was actually kind of surprised looking at our guidelines for Americans for physical activity. It didn't actually get incorporated into like our federal programs or well designed even really until 2008. I assumed that it would have been around a little bit longer. Currently, we're working on the 2nd edition, which was put out in 2018. And so I believe they'll be probably working on reviewing any more recent evidence and looking at how they can update that here soon. Just kind of give you a basic idea of what they do is they are a committee of folks that are appointed to the Physical Activity Guideline Committee. So it's not really like they applied for it. They take an extensive look at the current science around exercise and health benefits. They create up report, and then from the report, which I'll provide a link to later. It's enormous if you have an interest in skimming or even reading it. But then they develop these guidelines, which I'm about to go over with y'all. So the key takeaways or the key guidelines that I want y'all to be aware of is that what you see here, adults should aim to move more, sit less. To be more specific, if you want to see substantial health gains, then the recommendations are for 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity workout throughout a week, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic exercises. So you can kind of mix and match here. I know it seems intimidating, at least it did to me, to look at the number 150, 300 minutes of exercise. I'm thinking, I'm doing good to make lunch, guys. I don't know how I'm going to fit this into my time. But I do want to say that most of y'all said that it would be feasible to fit 30 minutes into your schedule. And if you break this down, it does come out to about 30 minutes total per day for 5 days out of the week, unless you're doing the more vigorous intensity, in which case you can kind of mix and match and make that a little bit less. Now, they also have the guidelines for muscle strengthening activities. Now, so if you're doing aerobic activity 5 days a week, they suggest doing muscle strengthening for 2 days of the week. And they don't really give specifics for a time length here. I think this is highly individualized based on how your body is going to react to strength training in general. So there's a whole field that we could get into there, but I just want to provide you with some general options and kind of give you um, an idea of what you could be looking at. Now, one I did want to say, so you don't have to include, say, 30 minutes in your day all in one go. The guidelines were actually adjusted for the second edition. Initially, the guidelines were saying that you had to have a 10-minute bout of exercise in order to see any benefits. But in the most recent edition, they've adjusted that and acknowledged that any improvement in physical activity will show improvement in health. So, and I was also another thing I was surprised while doing some research on this is that the recommendations for folks with chronic conditions are the same amount of time, same recommendations. The main thing is being mindful of your reaction to the workout and working with a health provider just to make sure that you're keeping up with things that are going to be impacted. Like your blood sugar might be impacted, your blood pressure might be impacted. Usually, this is going to be positive, but if you're anything like me, it's easy to overdo things. I mean, I get invested in something, I get excited about something. I'm maybe not always listening to my body very well, and I might overdo it, and that's going to set it back. So the key here is to go start low, go slow. It might feel a little bit like you're not going to see improvements, but if you're increasing your activity time, you're going to see improvements because so long as you're consistent. Consistency over intensity is obviously on here, and that's key because if you are going for intensity because you really want to see that impact, you're more likely to end up either injuring yourself or encountering burnout. So having a plan for recovery, maybe you don't want to do 5 days a week of exercise. Maybe you've managed to fit 15 minutes into your day and you take a day off. Your body's going to need that time to heal anyway. So what's the big deal about it? That's a big deal mostly because scary words like all cause mortality are linked to sedentary behavior, and our jobs are increasingly requiring much more sedentary behavior. And now I see something that says all cause mortality, and like, okay, that's kind of a scary word. What does that even actually mean? And it does literally mean that sitting all day is going to increase your chance of basically every measure of possible risk. So you've got cardiovascular disease, you've got increased risk of diabetes, increased risk of different cancers. And the good news is that modest and any improvement really of physical activity is going to have an impact on reducing these risks. So there were some additions to the benefits. Now there's an extensive list of benefits from physical activity, and I'm not going to review all of these. I just wanted y'all to be aware that even for the short term, if you just manage to do 10 minutes of getting your heart rate up and being a little bit out of breath in a safe way, you will see a reduction in anxiety. You can usually expect to see immediate improvement in blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, um, anxiety, as well as insomnia. These are all things that will benefit from increasing your physical activity. And then obviously there's quite a bit of help for disease management as well. So let's get into the actual terms here because without looking it up, I couldn't have told you what specifically aerobic exercise was. Jogging, maybe. That's what I would have thought of. But a brisk walk is going to be considered aerobic activity. You're swimming, you're bicycling. Honestly, if you're doing a brisk walk around your building and climbing stairs and your heart rate is up and you're a little bit out of breath, I'd call that aerobic activity. Strength training, that can be done with a lot of things, actually. Considering where you are on your fitness journey, it might be something as little as, say, lifting your water glass and doing kind of like a bicep curl with a water bottle or a water glass a few times. You could fit it in at your desk, honestly, if you wanted to do just a little bit. And we'll get more into ways to incorporate that into your lifestyle in a later session. But I wanted to point out that heavy gardening makes the list of increasing muscle mass. And honestly, I would imagine that, I've got a 3-year-old picking up your toddler from time to time and is going to include that. Okay, so I tossed around moderate intensity and vigorous intensity earlier. We could get in depth into the science of net values. We could get in depth into things that I don't feel like are very practical needs for someone who just wants to improve their lifestyle a little bit. So this is just kind of a guide. They recommended their guide from their executive summary that if you can talk but not sing, you're probably doing a pretty good job of moderate intensity workout. And then for a vigorous intensity workout, you're probably not going to be having a conversation like I'm having with y'all. Let's see. I did go through that kind of quickly, but I did want to leave time for questions. Um, so this is just kind of our schedule. We'll make sure that you have access to that schedule as well through email. So, like I mentioned before, we're going to talk a little bit about your available resources. And what I mean by that is I want to let y'all know what y'all have access to here in Faulkner County, what you have access to that you might want to use here on campus, employee benefits that you might use that you may not be aware of. And then we'll get into session 3, where I'd like to get a little bit more in depth on different ways that you might be able to incorporate both aerobic activity and muscle like strength training into what you're already doing throughout your day. Um, and then my last session, so you can spend as much time as you want on the science of this, and you can spend as much time as you want on planning a workout, but none of it's going to matter if you don't sustain that. And so I'd like to talk with y'all a little bit about habits, routines, engineering your environment to set yourself up for success. Oh, let's see. And I just wanted, I know that was somewhat brief, but as kind of what I want you to take away from this is that it is possible for anyone to improve their physical health through any increase in physical activity. I think that's kind of an understated takeaway from them releasing these guidelines. Is when I thought physical activity, I would have thought, okay, I don't have time to make time for a 30-minute workout routine. I'm trying to take care of a toddler. I'm trying to go through grad school. I'm trying to maintain a job. It's So I just want to make that seem more feasible for y'all and let you know that any increase in physical activity should come with health benefits. Let's see. Ah, and then just kind of for engagement's sake, if you would take a moment, if you've got a pen and paper or use your phone, if you could write down just for yourself, you don't have to share unless you want to in the chat. What would personally be an impact on you if you improved your physical fitness? How would this um, maybe is there a specific risk that this would decrease for you? Is there a specific improvement, like an increased energy that you're wanting to get out of this? But really, what I want you to do is make yourself a note that you can look at from time to time, and you don't have to keep it, but it's just kind of a good start to help increase that motivation or help remind you of the motivation that you already have that brought you to this meeting. I
Thank
know
you,
I
Vincent.
did kind of, I was, yeah, I was worried about time, but we can take some questions.
Yeah, if we have any questions, I think that your presentation was great. I know speaking for me personally, like whenever I get more consistent, exercising, whether that's just going on walks or whatever that looks like, I know that I have more energy and I just feel a lot better about, doing everything else. So thank you for sharing this. I also wanted to remind everyone of a couple things. So I think most of you completed the survey beforehand, but we are gonna have a post survey at the end of this. Vincent, if you want to go to the next slide so they can get a screenshot of their certificate of attendance. I know, so everyone can grab that to submit for their points. Couple things I will say with the certificate of attendance and points right now with the new app. There's going to be some delays in getting anything that requires proof, any lifestyle reward that requires proof to be approved right now. Just with the new program year, there's going to be some delays, but we'll get those approved soon. And then before we open up for any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.